breath. This dress is so tight, I cannot breathe. Oh, I cannot breathe in this dress. I can't breathe in this dress, I really can't breathe in this dress. Why did I wear it? Oh my god, I'm about to have Pirates of the Caribbean moment. Okay. Hey, I just took a break from filming a thrifted clothing haul video, hence I am in this, which I actually really like. I really love this dress. But anyway, this video is my February wrap-up, so I'll be going over everything I read in February. As per usual, I had a really fun reading month. I pretty much enjoyed every single thing I read, and I just feel like this year I'm just picking up stuff that I know I love because I know myself a lot better, and I'm mainly picking things from off of my own bookshelves. So I read 11 books, and then I read a bunch of poems. Some of them counted on Goodreads, so I think my total is like 12 or 13 pieces this month, but it was a very heavy month, a lot of essay stuff, a lot of school stuff, but also a lot of fun stuff. So let's just get into them. What do I want to start with? One of my favorites of the month, this was a 5-star read, was the posthumous memoirs of Bras. As well, I will try to let you guys know where I heard of all these books or just where they came from, because I've been getting a lot of questions about how I find books. This was a recommendation from you guys, and this was actually a gift from Lucas, so thank you so much, because this was phenomenal. I kind of knew it was. This is probably, just of my TBR 2022, this was probably at the very top spot. I absolutely fell in love with this, as I knew I would. I had read some of Machado's short stories before, a collection of his short stories. This one is one of his most famous works, and it is the narrative of a man who is writing his memoirs of his life after he has died. So he is in the afterlife, and somehow he is sending readers back the pages that he's writing, chronicling his life now that he's dead, and thinks he can see things clearly about his life and what he was going through. Ross is the person who is writing his life, and he is of the upper class. He's quite well off, but his life is actually very uneventful. He spends a lot of time complaining about what could have actually happened in his life if he had just, been better or done something different. And a lot of this chronicles his doomed love affair with another woman. I would absolutely recommend this to, I think, everyone. I think this is such an easy book to love. It is so accessible. I just rambled on about this in a vlog where I was saying it just feels like this was written yesterday. It feels like he just died and is sending me back letters of his life. Really cool topics in here talk about the author, a writer, who is an author, what is truth, what is life worth living. Machado's writing is just so funny, so clever. He is such a good writer. And you kind of hold a book that from the off proclaims itself not to be a book at all. And from someone who's not really an author, because he's just a dead dude reflecting on his life. This is such a wonderfully crafted novel, and I just think everyone should read it. So this is probably my favorite read of the month, I think. Yeah, it was. I loved it so much, and I highly recommend. So that is the posthumous memoirs. So good. The first book I got through in February was Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This was an audiobook that I picked up. I have really conflicted feelings about this one, because I kept switching back and forth between enjoying it, not enjoying it, thinking it was far too long, really loving the slowness of this book. This is a very loose retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, in which we are following 3 different women who all get caught up in this plot with the Starrick, who are kind of these ice fae creatures that haunt the forest and some of the villages where we are. This is also fantasy, and also get caught up in a plot with the Tsar, because we have a girl who is very close to the Tsar in this book. Mainly, I want to say we follow Miriam, who becomes a moneylender in place of her father because her father is doing an awful job, and Miriam just wants to save her family, be able to eat, be able to have clothes, and be able to survive the winter. As you might have guessed, I picked up Spinning Silver because it is all set in the winter, and the Stark are ice beings, which was so cool. One thing this book does really well is capture the desolation and the bleakness, but also the beauty of winter. It really captures the feeling of being cold, of not wearing enough layers when you step outside, but also how beautiful it is to be cold, to be able to experience the cold, but also to see the snow and just everything. So I really love that. I feel like the execution of the story was definitely not its strongest suit. I really felt disconnected. Naomi Novik's writing in this one is very task-oriented. You basically just follow the narration of the three girls telling you explicitly almost every single thing they're doing. There's not a lot of break that is allowed for time to pass, and so you have Miriam or Wanda, who's another one of the girls, just telling you, I baked bread, I cleaned this, I did that. It's a very task-oriented writing, based on a lot of their physical lives, because a lot of their lives are focused on like the physicality and doing labor and working, which is really, really cool. And so it's a little bit satisfying that way to see things being done, but as well, it does drag this book out a very, very long time. I think this book could have been edited down a lot, and the whole time I was listening to it, I was like, I would write this a completely different way, because I absolutely love the story. I think the premise and like the retelling of Rumpelstiltskin and the whole thing with the Stark and the Tsar and power and different power institutions, as well as mythology and stuff like that, along with the winter, just could have made such a good story. But I don't think like the execution and the way I wanted the story to be told was there, just specifically through the writing, the pacing, and the plotting and everything like that. So in the end, I was just ready for this to be over, sadly, so I gave it a 3-star. I don't know if I'll read any more Naomi Novik. I've already DNF'd, what's it called? Not The Last Graduate. I always say The Last Graduate, but I really just mean the first book in that duology. I don't know, the one with the school. You know what I'm talking about. That is Spinning Silver. I'm thirsty. Then I was gifted a book in my P.O. box in February, and I just picked it up because I just wanted something to read, because towards the end of this month I was reading so much scholarship, so many essays, so much schoolwork for a couple big essays I'm writing. So I've really been drifting towards the fun and the easy books recently, and this was amazing. I picked up Hunter x Hunter. This was a gift from Emma. Thank you so much. I love the clear sticky notes. Where can I get these? I really want them. She said that this is one of her favorite animes and therefore mangas. I hope you enjoyed the first volume. I loved the first volume. I had actually never heard of this until I saw it in my P.O. box. I'm not sure how, but this is Hunter x Hunter Volume 1 by Yoshihiro Togashi. He's actually the husband of Naoko Takeuchi, who created Sailor Moon, and I was just so surprised because I was just flicking through here, and then I turned the page, and all of a sudden I came across a drawing of Sailor Moon, and it was like a little thank you to his wife, which was just so cute. But Hunter x Hunter is completely different. We are following Gon, and in this fantasy world, there are beasts, and there are people known as hunters who go out. They sometimes hunt beasts or protect them. They can also help people. They can track down people. They're kind of like this melange of super heightened skills. They basically have to know how to work all technology, know how to do things like drive a ship, captain a ship, and essentially just help out in whatever way they can, I guess, in society by protecting people, protecting nature, going on treasure hunts, discovering new places. Really just a very savvy, cool, responsible adventure, I guess. And to be a hunter, you of course have to pass this super duper hard exam to be let in, which basically no one passes, and no one really even gets to take the exam because it's that prestigious and hard to get in. But we're following Gon, who lives in the countryside, and he lives with his aunt. He has always dreamed of becoming a hunter because his father was a hunter, and he's never known his father, although his father is said to be one of the best hunters ever in the whole world. And so he finally begs his aunt to let him go and take the test, or try and go and take the test. And so he starts out on this journey, and along the way he meets 2 other people who he teams up with, and it was just so fun. Like, it was just so fun, adventurous. There were a lot of really little like clever twists in here regarding characters and beasts and stuff, and just learning about the world. And all I can say, it was just fun. It was just a delight. I love this. I cannot wait to read more. I think someone told me there's 30 volumes in here, but I think I'd honestly read them all. This was such a pleasant, fun break, and I just loved it. I really like Kahlua. He's really cool, and the art is amazing. Really do love it. So that is Hunter x Hunter. I would highly recommend if you're looking for a new manga. I had no idea this existed, so thank you so much, Emma, because this made my day for the few days I got to read it. I loved it, and I cannot wait to read more and potentially watch the anime as well if I can get my hands on it. So that is that one. All right, probably my least favorite. Is this my least favorite? I think so. My least favorite read of the month was unfortunately Vita Nostra by Marina and Sergei Dyachenko. This is translated by Julia Maytov-Hersey, and this is a book that has been going around and getting popular for a while, I think. It was kind of pitched as a dark academia fantasy, but it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that, and I know so many people would love this endlessly. This one I think I heard about on Goodreads, and then it was also gifted to me, so thank you so much. You guys just influence so much of what I read and like what I pick up. So I'm gonna explain a little bit of this, and then I think I'm just gonna leave it there and give you my impressions, because I think so many people would absolutely love the vague, sometimes confusing, unknown void that this book presents, because we are following Sasha. She lives with her mother, and one day when they are on summer vacation, she gets approached by this very strange, creepy man who has like this dark aura around him, just completely bad vibes. The vibes are off. And he tells Sasha that she has to complete certain tasks, otherwise bad things will happen to the people that she loves. So for example, the first task, which I think is on the back, is to go out, swim in the ocean, and touch the buoy. You guys help me learn how to pronounce that word. Swim back, and when she does so, she starts to vomit up all these gold coins. After she completes a bunch of these strange little to-do list kind of things that are just absolutely absurd, she gets an invitation to go to this school that no one has ever heard of. It's called the Institute for Special Technologies, and once there, she gets admitted and starts learning she doesn't know what. Like, she has absolutely no idea what she's learning. She can't tell it to us. We have no idea how to interpret, analyze, or understand the kind of information, the kind of material that she is being told to digest. She's told to read a page that is just full of absolute gibberish, for example, and she has no idea what's going on, and no one is telling her or any of the other students who have arrived at the institute in very similar ways. A good way to describe this book is part of the synopsis on the back, which says obscure to the point of maddening, because you the whole time are in the same position as Sasha, and I think a lot of people would enjoy that. I liked that parallel, but for me it was just not enjoyable to read a book where I had no idea what was going on, coupled with a writing style that was incredibly repetitive, as well as the plot itself that was very repetitive, because Sasha would just go to class, get in trouble for trying to learn too much even though she doesn't know what she's learning, get punished, and then go right back to class, visit her mom, go right back to class, study, and the whole time you just don't know what's going on. On top of that, it's a very long book, at times very suffocating because there's no chapter breaks. And then at the end, I will say the mystery of the school is revealed, just in case you were wondering. I will say the reveal and the subsequent consequences, understanding, and gradual ending of this book was extremely disappointing to me. I just don't think it was executed very well. Something I've thought of before, I remember in my first year of uni sitting down and being like, oh my gosh, one day I want to write my thesis on this idea. I'm sure it's an idea no one else has, and obviously it's not, because other people have thought of this idea, which I won't say. What I will say is that this book has to do a lot with language, the power of language. So I gave this 3 stars too. If you liked Vita Nostra, let me know why, because I feel like a lot of people too, when I asked, struggled to say why they liked it, which is really, really interesting. I think it's just like an experience. This book is definitely an experience, and one that just leaves you kind of going, okay, interesting. I'm now gonna think about this in weird ways. That one I listened to on audiobook, and this one I did too, because I picked up The Greek Way by Edith Hamilton, which I've had on my shelf for so long. This one, how did I find this one? How did I find you? I think I was just researching ancient Greece and books about it many years ago, or a couple years ago, and I found The Greek Way by Edith Hamilton, which is a nonfiction book all about ancient Greece, from language to their philosophy to tragedy to just history. Most of the chapters are broken down into specific people, actually, and what they embody and what their writing is saying about ancient Greece. We have Xenophon, the Tragedians, Thucydides, Herodotus, Aristophanes, and Pindar, and Plato, and it's just, I loved it. A lot of this I already knew from studying stuff like this in university, but it's so nice to read it from Edith Hamilton's writing, because she has a really, really nice writing style, and you can tell she's so enthusiastic about her topic. She really takes a lot of pain to show you specific examples of what she's talking about when thinking about how Plato regards his fellow Athenians. I feel like I learned a lot, and something I really like is just not learning so much basic information like I think a lot of like textbook style books would teach you. For example, what year this happened in, what is this person's name, what is this art style called, and just giving you a lot of information. But books like this offer an interpretation of culture, which is really interesting, because this book starts out with explaining why the Greeks were so successful, why ancient Greece flourished as much as it did, and it did so in a new way that I haven't really ever considered before. And a lot of her arguments are very compelling, because after all, they are arguments, but a lot of them are tied to, of course, so much fact. And one of the reasons, just for example, she mentions is that their religion and their religious beliefs weren't suffocating and didn't tie down their art style or their lifestyle as much as people like the ancient Egyptians. Yeah, I just really like this. I highly recommend. I think this is a great place to start. If you're trying to get into the classics, classical studies, or ancient Greece, I think this was really fun. And I'm really glad I read it, so I gave that one 4 stars. I listened to this on audiobook too, so that is a Greek way. All right, something absolutely, completely different. Where's my Kindle? Oh shucks, it's not here, is it? Let me get it. I finally completed a book on my Kindle. I did it. A few people have been asking how it's going, if I'm liking it, and I am really, really, really liking it. So I finally finished a book, and that book was Games We Play? The Games We Play? No. Games We Play by Dana Isoli. This one as well has been so popular on BookTube. I saw it circulating a lot in like romance recommendations videos, and then I saw it on Kindle Unlimited as well, so I decided to give it a go. It is a novella. It's not going to win any Nobel Prize for literature, but that's okay. I think that I also don't like novellas, but I think also this wasn't the best thing I've ever read, the best romance I've ever read. So in this one, let me just preface it by saying this is 100% corpse husband fan fiction, I believe. I'm like 100% sure. Because in this one, we follow a reporter who is reporting on like online virtual gamers, streamers, influencers, and we have this masked figure who, oh God, what's his name? He's just called the Joker. I think it's also like because her name's Quinn. Joker? Harley Quinn? Yeah. There's a lot going on in this book. There's a lot to unpack here. He is a streamer, but he is a masked streamer, and so no one can see his face, much like a certain very popular YouTuber. But he has a voice of God, the voice of God. He has a voice given to him by God. His voice is godly. Anyway, so she is sent over to interview him on like his lifestyle and stuff for like a magazine or something, and then it is a novella. It just like cuts straight to the point, and the point is smut. Spice levels were high. I wouldn't give it like a ghost pepper spice rating. Maybe like you spilled accidentally a lot of black pepper into your pasta, and now your pasta is all black pepper, and you're just kind of choking on it. I mean, people were choking. Okay. One thing I will say is that I think its tone was all over the place. I would love to read some romances with, okay, hear me out. I would love to read romances with this level of smut or this level of spice, but well written and like paced well, plotted well, with good writing, and I feel like I honestly haven't yet, and maybe I just need to write it under a very different name. No one will ever know it's me. The pacing and the plotting and the tone is what I'm saying was all over the place, because it started off as this very like novella kind of throwaway, very short encounter, but then it all of a sudden delved into like these very deep topics in like the last maybe not even 20 pages, because this was so short, and it just got very serious. I'm glad I finally read something off of my Kindle. I have a few others on the go now. However, I'm not finished this one yet. That is the one that I finished this month. So it was just okay. I really don't know how to rate it. I think maybe like a 2-star. Okay, next up, time to give you some more whiplash. Let's go straight into the academic scholarly books, because that makes sense. That's how we do it around here. I had to read a ton of books for this essay I'm writing on Frankenstein. Very briefly is about like the act of witnessing in Frankenstein, I guess, and Victor being witnessed by the creature. What the anatomy of the creature says about his ability to look at Victor and what that look means. So the first one I picked up, this was 5 stars. This was phenomenal. I don't know why I'd never read this. This is The Animal That Therefore I Am by Derrida. Derrida is an extremely famous theorist and critic, and he's so good. He's so good. The Animal That Therefore I Am, I first heard about this because my professor was talking about it in class, and then some other essay that I was reading for Frankenstein mentioned this work, and I was like, this sounds exactly like what I need to talk about in my essay. Very simply, Derrida is a deconstructionist, so he breaks down binaries. He takes 2 opposing things, he looks at them, and he says, why have we set up these opposing things? Are they actually opposing things? Why do we oppose them? What does that say about us? Are these things even similar in any way, shape, or form? And in The Animal That Therefore I Am, that binary is humankind and animal kind. This was so amazing. It just puts a whole new angle on speciesism and Oh my god, it was just so good and made me consider so many things I had never really considered. One of the main things that he problematizes in here is the word animal. First of all, because it's a word that we've created and language already has all sorts of problems built into it, but it is a word that we have then put on to about a bajillion other extremely different species, called them the same thing, grouped all of these living beings into one category and opposed them to ourselves. He just makes you realize how ridiculous it is to call a little dog animal and then call a bioluminescent jellyfish at the bottom of the ocean that is 1,000 years old by the same name. In what world does that make any sense? Upsettingly, in our world. And then he also spends a lot of this book calling into question a lot of the philosophy that has come before that has built up the ways that we consider humankind's consciousness, our lives, what role we play in them, what place we have in the world. People like Lacan and Rousseau, Heidegger, Descartes, everyone. And he's like, you guys have problems in your work, and a lot of that stems from the way that you consider, or actually don't consider, the animal and what they're doing. What was really helpful for me though was like the first, if you want to read this is so hard to read. This took me a very long time, a lot of brain juice, because Derrida is just all over the place. He ignores everything you should ever do when writing like an essay or a book or a piece of criticism. He is just here and then he's here. It's incredibly dense, it's incredibly challenging, but also incredibly rewarding. I would say just start with the first like 40 pages, 40 or 50 pages, because that was just the section that I got the most out of, and the most out of for my essay, because these sections talk about what does it mean for an animal to look at you. If you're naked and your cat is staring at you, you're going to be embarrassed. And what does that embarrassment say about you? What does that embarrassment say about the cat? What implications, what responsibility, what are you projecting onto the cat? And you clearly have an idea of their consciousness, of their ability to judge you, to look at you, to witness you. You've made them an other for you that is looking at you and affecting you. And that already says so much about the dichotomy, but also animals and the way that we look at them and the way that we sometimes ignore what we actually think of them. So Frankenstein's creature is made from various animal parts. He says he gets his materials from the slaughterhouse, and so like basically the essay that I'm working on is about breaking down the different pieces of anatomy in the creature, where they come from, and then from those places that they come from, what kind of witnessing or what kind of gaze or what kind of other Victor has created for himself, be that animal, non-human, pieces of people that are dead. He's created the dead. He's created a plurality of people in one person, and they're all looking at him, judging him, making him self-aware. Very quickly, the other one I read, I really don't have too much to say about this. This is Murdering to Dissect, Grave-Robbing Frankenstein in the Anatomy Literature by Tim Marshall. This was fine. This is more a piece of, I would say it was very good in terms of a piece of history, letting you know what the situation was at the day. This is all about what surgeons were doing to acquire bodies. A lot of body snatching, a lot of murdering, a lot of very unethical things going on, and it was extremely helpful as well to kind of see the world that Victor is born into and what he might have had to do, and what Mary Shelley explicitly says that he had to do. So just kind of that whole world. And then it did talk a little bit about Frankenstein. Basically, Tim Marshall's thesis is that the Anatomy Act of 1832 is Frankenstein's twin in the science literature, or in science law, or whatever law you want to call it, is the twin to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein the novel, because the Anatomy Act basically made it legal for people who died in workhouses, people who were very poor when they died. If their bodies were unclaimed, then surgeons could take their bodies, slice them up, and use them for their research. I don't think I really agree with Tim Marshall. He really stretches a lot of things. In terms of like a piece of scholarship, it's very all conjecture-y, and like of course it's going to be, but a lot of this felt very shaky. But in terms of giving good historical context, presenting the facts, that was all I really needed. So it talks about stuff like the medical gaze, which is also something I want to talk about. Also for my essay, I've just been honestly trying to consume everything Frankenstein. I'm in the middle of watching the Frankenstein movie from 1994, which is so unhinged, but I also picked up the audiobook Monster she wrote, the woman who pioneered speculative fiction and horror. This is put together by Lisa Kroger, I believe, and this is a piece of nonfiction that goes from Mary Shelley, but even before Mary Shelley all the way to people like Angela Carter, Toni Morrison, Helen Oyeyemi, all the way up to present day, talking about the women who have accumulated and created so much work, so many books, so much writing about horror, speculative fiction, terror, the gothic, the ghostly, supernatural, the science fiction a little bit, and essentially why they aren't talked about. Because I went into this book, and this is so sad when you think about it, but I went into this book being like, oh, this is just going to be a cool refresh for me. I think it's going to tell me a little bit about maybe some authors I don't know, but I think I'm going to know them all. I think I knew maybe 7 of the authors that were talked about in here, and this book talked about easily over 20 or 30 different women. After they said Mary Shelley, I didn't know who anyone was until much, much later. And that is so saddening because I hadn't even heard their names. I had not heard the titles of their books. I had not heard anything. I feel like we have Anne Radcliffe, Mary Shelley, who exist a lot in the general public's conscious, but everyone, for this huge span of time, I had never heard of their names, and I was like, oh damn it. It's so upsetting. So basically what this book ended up being was a list of recommendations. I think this book is incredibly important because I had no idea who so many of these women were. I had no idea what they had contributed. I had no idea what they had done. I had no idea what their names were, what their works were. And so I learned so much. But this book, I will say, I did have a lot of critiques about because it's also very surface level. But I think that's what this book is, right? Like mostly this book is a piece of witnessing in itself. It's just saying, here, look at these names. Let me give you some recommendations because each chapter is a different woman writer, and at the end of the chapter they give you recommendations for books to check out either by that author or by someone else. And so what this ended up doing for me was extending my already super long TBR miles and miles longer, because I added so many books to lists of gothic books I want to read, spooky books I want to read. I just got so many recommendations, so I think that's something this book is really, really good for. But like I was saying, it is very surface level because I want to say basically the entry for each woman just seems like a brief Wikipedia summary, but that basic information I feel like is very easily just in one ear and out the other after you listen to it, because it talks about where they're born, where they grew up, what years they were living, a little bit about their backstory, which a lot of these are just not known at all, so a lot of it is speculated. What I wanted from this book, and I don't blame it for not giving it to me though, is a much deeper analysis and exploration of the trends, of the reasons why the Gothic and everything like that became so prevalent. And I just don't think that was the book for that, but that's not on the book because the book knew what it was. I just didn't yet know what the book was, if that makes sense. I would really recommend this book as a resource. I think this book is a fantastic resource. And it's really, really good. And it'll give you so many recommendations. So that is Monster, She Wrote. I also finished up Restless Slumber by Kate Sutton. Was this my only reread of the month, I believe? I love this. This is the second book in the Fortuna Sworn series. This book is just, oh my gosh, it's chaos. It hurts. It's so much pain. But I love it so much. So in this one, the world gets expanded. We're following Fortuna, who is a nightmare. And this world is not just occupied by fae. There's basically every supernatural creature you could think of. Stuff like this as well would not exist without Monster, She Wrote, or They Wrote, and everything that came before. This book has werewolves, oh my gosh, it has zombies, it has demons, it has sirens. It's just chock full of the supernatural, who are all fallen in that basically all of their lines deviate from Satan and his angels. Other angels fall from heaven, and then they created all of these fallen. So Fortuna is our girl. She's my girl. I love Fortuna so much. Oh my gosh, I would die for you. The first read through, I really thought I loved Colith most of all, but I think it's Laurie. I think Laurie now has my heart. I just love this so much. 4 stars. I am currently listening to the 3rd book so that I can finally get to the 4th book, which came out in January, and then I'm gonna tackle that big, like 700-page monster. So that is Restless Slumber. I just loved it. Loved it so much. Okay. And then the last book I read, I finished this yesterday. This was so devastating, and that is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. This, oh dear Lord, this was so good. I'm really hesitating between 4.5 or 5 stars for this one. This was so good. In this one, we are following Okonkwo. He is the greatest wrestler in his clan. He's very much revered as like the top the top person. He exhibits all the qualities that you need to succeed and have like a very good title in your clan, which is outrageous, manliness, strength, power, control over women, all of that stuff. And he has it all because his father had none of that, and Okonkwo grew to just absolutely hate his father, everything he stood for, and so he vows to hate everything his father loved, including gentleness, music, I guess joy of life, excess and stuff like that. So Okonkwo spends his whole life working towards this ideal of essentially manliness that is so celebrated in his clan. When he accidentally kills a clansman, things begin to fall apart, and he is exiled because you get exiled if you kill your clansman. He returns from exile to find missionaries and colonial governors have arrived in the village, and with his world thrown radically off balance, he can only hurtle towards tragedy, is what the back says. It's just doing so many different things. I think it is so good because you have, for the first maybe, it's a very short book as well, it's 150 pages. For the first 100 pages, you're just kind of waiting, because like after you read the synopsis, you know something awful is going to happen, but you're just waiting, and you're just witnessing life in the clan, life in the village, what's going on in Okonkwo's household. He has a number of wives, a number of children, what they're doing, and you learn so much about their life, which was just so informative, and like it's just so well written, this book. And you're just learning, gathering information, seeing maybe that there's already problems there before you thought a problem was even gonna arise. This is a book that I think I honestly can't say too much about without ruining the experience that you would have reading it. I think you just have to read it, witness it, finish the book. The last few pages, the last page and the last few chapters is just like a punch to the face. I think this is an exquisitely written book. It knows exactly what it is doing. I'm actually in the middle of reading like a few essays about it that, funnily enough, were in the books I checked out for Frankenstein. But it's just so good. Definitely when I started reading it, because you don't like Okonkwo, or at least I'm pretty sure no one who reads this book likes Okonkwo. You feel definitely a lot of pity for him, I think, in the way that he is set up in the system ultimately to fail, because it's an outrageously damaging system and set of values to try and follow, to try and mold your life to, not only for yourself, but for the people around you. He treats everyone horribly, and you really don't like Okonkwo. And so reading like the first 100 pages, I was like, what am I supposed to be feeling here? Like, what is actually going on? You gotta trust the book, and it just, oh Lord, it was so great. So that is Things Fall Apart. Highly recommend. This was just so great, and I had really no idea what to expect. But what did I hear about this one? I think I've heard about this one pretty much my whole life because it's very famous. Finally took this one off. I've been waiting to read that one for a very long time. So I think that's everything I read. I also got to read a few longer poems for university. I reread My Last Duchess by Robert Browning, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot, and then I read Cooper's Hill by John Denham. That was for my Renaissance class. I really didn't like it. I really don't like too much poetry that I read from my Renaissance English class, honestly, but that's okay. So that is everything I read in February. Oh, some of these, when I look at them, I'm just like, I love you so much. You hurt me so much. I love you so much. They're so great. So definitely let me know what your favorite book of the month was, or what you're planning to read next month. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a really great day, whatever you're doing, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Ciao.